Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Breaking any record is a challenge. How you answer that challenge is up to you. You brought the block party back to Indy.
And that's Myles Turner with his first block shot.
And you did it your way. Congratulations on becoming an all-time blocks leader for the Indiana Pacers. You carry on that legacy. And now, you set the pace for the next block artist in the blue and gold to chase.
Blocked by Turner. Right by Turner! He hits it on the glass.
Another terrific block for the best in the business. 2.3 blocks per game in his career.
Rejected by Myles Turner.
So keep going.
Here's Kuminga, and it's blocked by Turner.
There it is, got the record.
The all-time shot block leader for the Indiana Pacers, Myles Turner.
Happy Saturday, Pacer Nation. What is going on? Welcome back to your go-to Pacers podcast. And the Indiana Pacers get their 40th win of the season, taking down the Golden State Warriors 123-111. They are undefeated now, Facci, on this road trip, 2-0. So how we doing, man? How we feeling?
We are feeling great. Back in the 40s as it relates to, wins. Fantastic. The other day, the Pacers at least clinched a play-in appearance. Good to know that, hey, some postseason basketball is right around the corner. I know you mentioned undefeated on the road trip. Actually, it's the Pacers that are undefeated in the Chase Center right now. They have the Warriors number, in their new stadium. Fun to see, but more importantly, to be able to get a good quality win against the Warriors team that took it to the Pacers last time they met. I thought this was impressive.
Yeah, 5-0 in the Chase Center, and the Indiana Pacers, I believe, are the only team in the NBA that have not lost in Golden State's new arena. So shout out to them. Oracle Arena was their kryptonite. Chase Center, come on now, and got nothing on the Pacers. But lots of ways we can start this one off, but I felt like it was only fitting that we start things off with the longest tenured Pacer, Myles Turner. He breaks the franchise record for most blocks. After last night's performance, Facci has 1,248 blocks as we stand. He breaks your guy, Jermaine O'Neal's record, by blocking Jonathan Kuminga in the third quarter. And as I was watching it live, I said, Facci is not going to feel good about this, but at the same time, we knew it was happening, and it was a performance tonight from Myles Turner. 5 blocks in this game. A great performance from him.
Nah, I'm thrilled for Myles. Look, I'll always love me some Jermaine O'Neal, but I feel that it's like Myles Turner has grew up with the Pacers. His tenure here has been awesome to see. He's really become, a man in Indiana, and I think that you got to be thrilled for him. The 5 blocks, awesome. We knew this record would fall, but at the same point, it's great that Myles was able to break it. I would have loved for him to be able to break it in Indiana, but hey, we can't be too nitpicky. So I think that's just shout out to Turner. Awesome record. I think this is a record that's going to stand for quite some time. I mean, Jermaine's record stood for a while, but there is no one even remotely close behind Myles that has a chance to break this record. So just like he said, hey, this is something that could stand for a while, that he could tell his kids, his grandkids about, etc. I do think that this is going to be a record that stands for quite some time.
No, absolutely. And I thought it was awesome because, Myles Turner's first block came on October 29, 2015 against the Memphis Grizzlies. He blocked JaMychal Green, and I believe it was a jump ball when he blocked it. So that was a great first block of an NBA career. But yeah, I thought it was great that Jermaine O'Neal did a voice message congratulating Myles Turner. The Pacers shared that. And it was really cool to see kind of Jermaine. And it feels like since the All-Star game was here, Jermaine's kind of been more immersed with the franchise than he had been recently. And that's great to see. I think Carlisle's kind of got that connection. But, we hadn't heard a lot about Jermaine, and he kind of voiced some frustrations in the offseason. We talked about that as well. Just not being a part of the franchise or not feeling like he was as included. But it feels like this was a big stepping stone maybe for those two to reconnect.
I 100% agree, and I'm not going to be dramatic. I got goosebumps when I listened to Jermaine talk about that because that was my hero growing up. And to be able to feel like they're patching up some of those wounds and healing that relationship, I couldn't agree more with you because that's everything that you and I and this fan base has been asking for. Is you got to reconnect with the legends of the past. And something even so small as just that voiceover video, which you did say setting the pace in that you pointed out. And I love to hear that. I know that's just a coincidence, but look, it was just awesome to see. And I hope that the Pacers can continue to lean into things like this because it just makes the whole fan base feel a little bit warmer when you hear a legend of the past talking about a current player on this roster.
No, it definitely does, and it's great to see that Jermaine O'Neal's kind of passing the mantle to Myles Turner as the leader of the franchise record of most blocks. But in this game, Facci, 5 blocks for Myles Turner. That is the 4th time this season where he's recorded 5+ blocks. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but this was the first time in Myles Turner's career that he has blocked Steph Curry.
Oh wow,
And
did not see that. That says a lot.
yeah, and it would have been great if that would have been his first block. Is
epic.
Yeah, the one, but still pretty awesome. And Derek Kramer had that of iPacers blog, and I'm sure you guys have noticed on Twitter, he does a great job, the Miles High Club, where he tracks every single player blocked by Myles Turner and how many times they've been blocked by him. So I appreciate the commitment to doing that. But yeah, honestly, this was a fantastic game, and Turner for Turner, he had 10 rebounds in this game too. Facci, always love to see him get to double digits. 14 points is about average, but 14, 10, and 5 feels like a pretty solid Myles, not even if the shooting wasn't the highest percentage.
Yeah, the shooting about 5 of 15. You know what? Hey, look, we can move past that in a game where A, he set a milestone, but B, the rim protection with 5 blocks has been awesome for Turner. Has been a little bit up and down from a shot blocking standpoint. So 5 blocks, incredible. With the 10 rebounds, I mean that's what we've been asking for. It's just like, hey, this team is just better when Turner is able to crash the glass. And he wasn't the only one crashing the glass in this game, despite the Pacers being out rebounded. But you're never going to complain about a Myles Turner double-double and 5 blocks. So great to see.
All right, Facci, I think that's a good enough conversation there on Myles Turner to start things off. But probably the meat of this conversation needs to start with this man right here. And in my notes, I wrote, "Is Tyrese Haliburton back?" ? I said,
I wanted to say it so bad myself.
This game tonight, Facci, I felt like the point guard was sensational. 26 points, 11 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks, was a plus 25 and had shooting splits of 50%, 50%, and 80%. I thought this was just a fantastic performance from Tyrese Haliburton.
This felt like vintage Haliburton, just like what we saw in the beginning of the year. I mean, it's like not only, hey, the 26 points, it's fantastic. The efficiency is awesome. But you saw him pull up on some deep threes and hit them. Not the like, what are you doing? Or why is he taking that type of shot? Like he hit buzzer beaters essentially right before halftime and right at the end of the third quarter. So that was great to see. And I feel like that 3-pointer right before halftime gave the Pacers a lot of momentum going into halftime. So I think that was awesome to see. But yeah, I mean, you look at this, it just felt like this is probably, it's back-to-back performances by Turner now that you start to really feel confident. You had the doubters. Well, it's Detroit. Like, whatever. They're the worst. Okay, well, what are you going to say now? This is Golden State, on the road. So I think that this is a really good performance, and it just feels like that weight off of his shoulders could be getting a little bit lighter. Because you know what happens when you're in a slump. Now, look, it's not like you and I have this large history of being in slumps in the NBA, but it was wearing on him, and it was taking the fun out of the game and everything. I feel like we're starting to see Haliburton get back to himself. You can make an argument it's starting to come at the right time because the season is winding down. You want to be playing your best basketball at the end of the year, so we could forget about what might have happened in late February, early March when Haliburton's starting to play like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's still 11 games left in the season, not that many, but you want to see him kind of heading in the right direction. And it was really good to see because this was just the second time since the All-Star break where Tyrese has made 4 threes in a game, Facci. And I will say this, it's the first time he shot 50% from 3 since Valentine's Day. That's 38 days ago since we've seen Haliburton shoot 50% or better from 3. Yeah. So obviously not a lot of guys shoot 50% from 3, but Haliburton had some special moments there at the beginning of the season where he was putting up these efficient numbers, and I felt like, you know what, it's not as important, but it is important to talk about because it was really key. But, Rick Carlisle talked about the buzzer beater that he had at the end of the third quarter being something that kind of he felt like was great. He said the shot at the end of the third quarter was great. It made it a 14-point lead, and Golden State only had 1 timeout. It was huge. So that does kind of make a big difference because if you keep it around 11, 2 made threes, Golden State's right back into it. By extending that lead to 14, I mean, that third quarter was sensational, but Tyrese Haliburton was just so good in this game. And, 4 steals and 3 blocks. I mean, he was blocking Steph Curry jump shots. He was like kind of a menace, out there in the gaps trying to steal the basketball. So had a great play too, where it was originally called a foul. The Pacers challenged it in the second quarter, I believe it was, and he had hit the ball off of Kuminga's leg, and they called a foul on him, and he was like, "No, you got to review that." They went and reviewed it, and it was a good call, and they ended up getting the challenge right. So just a really nice performance from Tyrese Haliburton. I love seeing this from him, and you could see he was happy again, probably for the first time since the All-Star break.
It was definitely evident. And, you talk about the steals. Alex, that's now 8 steals in his last 2 games. 8. That's a lot. Back-to-back games with 4. But you're talking about in terms of, as the kids like to say these days, stocks, the steals and blocks. I mean,
It's these days.
7 stocks in this game against Golden State. That's awesome to see for a guy who's never been labeled a good defender. You're starting to see a lot of effort. 3 blocks out of Haliburton is nothing short of incredible to see. So I think that's awesome, and just you feel good about him because Twitter, social media, whatever you want to label it as, is starting to become a dark place for a player that is as good and the franchise like Tyrese Haliburton. So I think that was good to see. Then next, also we got to give our credit to Pascal Siakam because. And actually, real quick, before we transition off of Haliburton, just to put things in perspective. So Haliburton, 26 points, 11 assists, the 9 of 18 shooting. Fantastic. Last time against Golden State, it was a struggle. Haliburton had 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting and just did not look efficient at all. I think maybe he had like a basket by halftime in that game. There's stuff. This was a very different Tyrese Haliburton that we saw against Golden State, and it obviously made a major difference.
Yeah, before I move on to Pascal, I do want to say, I think this was without a doubt the best offensive game we've seen Haliburton have since the All-Star break. And you could honestly say maybe it's the best offensive game we've seen from him since he came back from injury.
I'd say so. I would.
So I mean, he was just bouncier tonight. He felt like a lot more like vintage Tyrese. So I think that's fair to say. So I don't want to say this was the best performance we've seen from him overall in the last couple months, but you could say it. I just don't have enough of a I haven't looked back far enough to kind of see and compare everything. But I will say, aside from the first quarter, I thought this was one of his best defensive games as well. He wasn't super great in the first, had some lapses, and I think the whole defense was just pretty bad in the first quarter. Gave up a lot of points.
38.
Yeah. So, but I think this was probably his best defensive effort since the game against OKC, where I felt like the whole team was locked in defensively. But overall, I would say to me, this has probably been the best game that we've seen from Haliburton, probably since returning from the injury.
I'd say so because some of those other performances that were really good were against Detroit. So it's like, you got to be able to take it with a grain of salt in those games. And hey, this is a Golden State team that is a far better team with something to play for than the Detroit Pistons. So I think that when you're factoring in a level of competition, I think that this was his best game since that hamstring injury. So awesome to see. But transitioning over to Pascal Siakam, I thought Siakam was awesome in this game. I mean, 25 points, 16 boards, 6 assists, but he does it on 11 of 17 shooting. I feel like Siakam was someone that if you ever needed a basket, I mean, he's able to get it for you. And that's another guy that had an incredible bounce back performance for last time against Golden State. He had 16 points and 8 boards. I just felt like it wasn't that much of a factor. He had 11 shots last time. I think that Siakam is really getting into a rhythm with the Pacers lately, really getting those shots up. When we're starting to get away from those games where it's just like, why didn't he touch the ball that much, over a quarter or two? This is now back-to-back games that he scored 25 points. And in 3 of his last 4 games now, he scored 25 or more, and he's been efficient 50% or above in all 4 of those games.
I mean, yeah, the Pacers are still undefeated when he has 20 and 10 in a game. So that's, or 20 points, 20 plus points and 10 plus rebounds in a game. I think 16 rebounds is the most he's had as a Pacer. So
it is.
So that's great to see as well. I mean, just a really nice, a nice overall game from him. I don't think there was anything that stood out specifically. Just had some nice scoring burst here and there. 8 points in the first quarter, 5 in the second, 9 in the third, only 3 in the fourth, but you didn't need him as much in the fourth. But in the quarters where they really needed him, especially that third quarter, I thought the 9 points were huge. Just scoring in a variety of ways, and that's kind of what Pascal does. It's just nice to have another option out there that can do that. And when Tyrese is scoring the way he's scoring, Tyrese, I believe, was a plus 25 in the game, Facci, so that's huge. But Pascal was a plus 16 in the game, so I felt like there was a nice stretch there where he stepped in and made some big plays, and great to just see from him overall. I mean, Pascal Siakam, he just has been a constant for this Pacers team, like you mentioned with those stats the last couple of games. So it's really good to see him kind of flourishing in this role, and I think you're starting to see him each and every game get more and more comfortable with this team.
I agree. I really do think that he's like hitting. I would like to believe that he's really hitting a stride of like gelling with this team at this time, just when Tyrese Haliburton is becoming himself again. So I think that that's really the perfect timing. But talking about that third quarter a little bit, Haliburton in that quarter was awesome. He had 11 points in the third. That was really where Indiana turned this game around, because what we didn't touch on was the Pacers trailed by double digits early in this game. And they, you might look at the score and be, oh, Pacers killed them. That was not the case. Indiana would trail by, I believe, as many as 12 in this game. And in that third quarter, they outscored Golden State 36-21. And I felt like that was really the pivotal point in that game, going on a really big scoring run and really being able to kind of hold Golden State in check, because Steph Curry was the player that really got Golden State off to that hot lead in the beginning. He scored 13 points, I believe it was, in the first quarter, and then finished the game with 25. So if you're talking about 13 in the first, he had 12 points on the remaining 3 quarters. So I think you really got to give credit to the Pacers defense, and in specific Andrew Nembhard, who on both sides of the ball I thought played really well in this game. So I think with the Coach Thorpe video that was going around, some people might have thought, hey, what, I feel like Andrew Nembhard is getting talked about super, super positively. Maybe Mathurin isn't, but you saw like Andrew Nembhard was a big difference in this game, and he was a plus 18 to back it up.
Andrew Nembhard just has classic performances every time he steps into the Chase Center, it feels
really
like.
Does.
So, I mean, well, what else can you say? But, Steph Curry, you mentioned it, 25 points, but Facci, 24 shots to get 25 points. So
6 of 18 from 3. Whoa.
Yeah, and we saw Steph Curry light the Pacers up when he was in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So it was good to kind of see
42 points in that game. He
42 points?
42 points on 15 of 22 shooting. It was like Curry by himself was beating the Pacers. That was not the case this time, and I love to see the Pacers be able to make those changes.
That was one of the worst games of the season for the Pacers. So, yeah, but, Rick Carlisle had this to say about defending Steph Curry, and I thought it was great. He said, anytime you hold Steph under 30, you've done an amazing job. We only got 10 of 25 loose balls in the first half, and a lot of threes came off that. We did a much better job in the second half on that end, being able to kind of control the loose balls. But, it's one of those things where Nembhard, and I always encourage people, like, if you just really watch a game, or if you go back and watch a game, I think that's always fun to do too, is like just go kind of watch how much this guy fights on both sides, because not only is he having to guard the best player, they're asking him to be more of a ball handler now, with Tyrese kind of getting more pressure and to kind of create the offense. So he's kind of becoming a two-way player right in front of our eyes, and I'm not sure what exactly his ceiling is or anything like that, but against Golden State, like you said, Facci, just a great shooting performance from him tonight. Had some timely threes. There was one that kind of rattled in there a little bit into the second quarter, and it was a big shot, though, but just a really efficient night, 7 of 11, 17, 5 and 5. Like, that's just a very, very solid game from your starting two guard, and if he can continue to do that, I mean, wow. I hope that he continues to kind of just grow as an offensive player.
That's kind of that next step for the Pacers, is like if Andrew Nembhard can continuously get better, that's that internal development that you really need. We've talked about before just how incredibly appealing that contract is, to be like actually the lowest paid Pacer and being able to be a starting two guard on this team, being able to be one of the better defenders, another playmaker as well. I mean, that's that internal growth that you need when you have Tyrese Haliburton's max contract kicking in. You're hoping to have Siakam put, pen to paper, on his max contract. All of a sudden, it's going to be a little bit harder to fill out this roster. Andrew Nembhard's one of those players that you're really counting on to get better for next year. And I think that this was a great performance by him. So that was fun to see. And then kind of just, rounding off, I thought it was you had some struggles from some players, but I feel like Nesmith didn't shoot the ball the way you want to. 3 of 11. I feel like he's been in a little, but he's still a plus 14. Obviously, defensively, look, he's bringing a lot to the table. But do you think he's the next guy that I think is going to kind of snap out of this. And it's not like he's in this like big rut by any means, but like This was a guy that at one point was second in the NBA in 3-point percentage, and I felt like being able to kind of rattle off some bigger performances. Do you think it's more the Pacers are just kind of having him say, hey, just kind of excel in your role a little bit more compared to being more of like a scoring option?
Well, here's what I think, and I think Coach Thorpe kind of brought it up a little bit where he was saying that Turner and Neesmith are kind of looking for more of their shots, and I didn't necessarily totally agree with that comment. I think that part of it is just because Tyrese has been struggling so much, and you need other guys to kind of step up and things like that. But I will say this: when it comes to Neesmith, I think that his touches are probably going to be less and less
I think
as
so.
they continue to kind of ride things out with Tyrese getting more comfortable with this hamstring injury and getting over that hump, and then of course Siakam in the fold, and Nembhard handling the ball more, and just the way the offense is now compared to what it was. But I think if they can continue to get out and run a little bit more, because we've seen them not run near as much, even though they're still running a little bit. In this game against Golden State, they ran a lot more, and I know he didn't shoot the ball particularly well, just 3 of 11 from the field, but at the same time, I'm not worried about it. I think that it's going to happen because he's still a 46% three-point shooter for the season, and that's a pretty large sample size to kind of feel
Yes.
confident about what he can do. So, the same thing with Tyrese. Like Tyrese just went through a major slump where he couldn't make anything. Then he has a good breakout game here against Golden State. Didn't play too bad against Detroit, but still, like this game felt much different. So maybe, like you said, he can be that next guy. But I think a lot of it's just going to come with like what kind of shots is he getting in the offense? Are they quality shots? Are they not quality shots? Is he forcing things? And when he plays fast, that's great. But I also think sometimes he can get a little bit too fast on his shot. And his best shot is when it's a set shot. And I think that's what Coach Thorpe kind of alluded to. Like, hey, take the good shots, make the right shots, but don't take unnecessary shots. And I hope he doesn't kind of press too much, trying to find that rhythm again. But just take them in stride, and I think things will all play out.
I think they will. They'll be just fine. In the month of, I believe it was December and January, Neesmith was averaging about 13.5 points per game, about 50% shooting from the field, and about 45% from three. Hey, this month is a little bit down. I think you shoot about 40% from the field, but I think that he's another one of those players that it's like the good part is you don't need Neesmith to be going out there and giving you 15 a night. You have other players that you can count on. I think in the beginning of the year, he was probably that most consistent pacer, and you really needed him to be. It's good that right now there's not a lot of pressure on him. But one thing we were taking a look at, we wanted to see from the Detroit game when Isaiah Jackson got those minutes and Jalen Smith did not. Jalen Smith still has his role absolutely on this team. I think it was just a one-game thing against Detroit. Jalen Smith logs 21 minutes. Isaiah Jackson does not make an appearance. Jalen in this game, 11 points, 7 boards. He does it on 4 or 5 shooting. So he's not going anywhere.
3 or 3 from 3, Facci.
I mean,
he
yeah.
he hit some big shots, and so especially in that second quarter when Golden State was just kind of putting the clamps on everybody in terms of not the clamps, they were putting on an offensive firepower show. So I think everybody that like has watched the Pacers all season long understood that this was just a coincidence type thing for Isaiah Jackson, because Rick Carlisle is trying to reward him because he's been a good soldier in terms of not playing and being the third string center and trying to figure it out. But this is Jalen Smith's spot. I'm sorry to say it, but the way he spreads the floor, I think he's not nearly as athletic as Isaiah Jackson is. But I still think that he's grown into being more of a big body down low. And honestly, the Pacers are just a better team with that second unit when you have floor spacing.
And here's the thing. Isaiah Jackson played well against Detroit. Yes, you could always say it's Detroit, but he still played well regardless. When you're talking about floor spacing, I'm sorry, but there's no scenario where Isaiah Jackson's going 3 of 3 from three-point land. It's just not happening. Jalen Smith has drastically improved that three-point shot. Last year, it was a big struggle for him, but this year he's been very good from three-point land. So that's awesome to see. I thought that the bench gave you enough. It wasn't really that type of performance where you needed to lean on the bench. I felt like it's because Haliburton, Siakam really had it going. Andrew Nembhard, that was good overall. The Pacers have 6 players in double figures. That's always kind of been key for them. But I think that it's good that you didn't need the bench to be able to score, 40 plus points or anything of that sort. So I think that that's good. And actually, the Pacers are now 33-13 when 6 or more players score in double figures. So it feels that we've always known the depth is their strength. And 33-13, that is fantastic.
I love seeing that stat, but I also love seeing it when it's guys like Haliburton and Siakam leading the pack and everybody else kind of following suit. I don't
Mhm.
like seeing it when it's like somebody like off the bench is a leading scorer, something like that.
That's
And
never
I'm
going
not
to work out
saying,
good. No,
yeah, I'm
not for
not saying
us.
it's bad. Like it's okay if McConnell leads a team and scoring every once in a while, but like that's not the recipe for success.
No.
You need your stars to be the stars. But yeah, overall, just a great game, a great way to kind of continue on this road trip with everything being so close in the standings. And Facci, the Pacers got a huge win last night because both Miami and Philadelphia lost. Miami loses at home to the Pelicans, and the 76ers lost on the road against the Los Angeles Lakers. So that gives Indiana a comfortable 1.5 lead in the sixth spot. But let me just tell you this, because
What do you
I
got?
think a lot of people have said, okay, well, if Indiana gets six, they're probably playing Cleveland. Have you seen how close Orlando is to Cleveland right now for the 3 seed? It's
It's
pretty
getting
shocking.
interesting. It really is. Just one game back, and people who are starting to count their chickens before they hatch and say, "Oh, Cleveland, this whole race right now is really close," because Cleveland right now is in the 3 spot. One game behind them is Orlando, and then just 1.5 games back of Cleveland is the Knicks right now.
Mm.
So week in about one day, a lot could change. And in 48 hours, that whole scenario could change. So it looks like if the Pacers can maintain that 6 spot, yeah, it could be Cleveland, Orlando, or the Knicks. You just simply do not know. But what I do know is you really want to be in that top 6 really badly. The Pacers are, it's nice to have a game and a half lead. Things could change very quickly, but that was a big win and a big assist for the Pacers to have the Heat and the 76ers go down. So I mean, out of those three, is there a team that you would prefer to play?
I was going to ask you that question too, because I think it's interesting. I mean, we have struggled with Orlando this
We
year.
have,
We did beat them
but
pretty good in the last game, and they don't have any playoff experience really. So,
that's my thing right there is
yeah.
like it's a big difference. You look at the Knicks, it's like the last couple years they've been building on it, and that those players do have playoff experience. The Cavs, that's a team that has not hit their stride in the playoffs. Last year, they got that bad taste in their mouth getting bounced from the Knicks. I do think that those teams are going to be more ready. You look at Orlando, there's a part of them, they'll never admit it, obviously, that might just be happy to be in the playoffs. Like, wow, this is great experience. I think that it'd be nice to have the Pacers and Orlando on that same type of playing field. We've talked about it earlier. God, once you get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter what you did in the regular season. We own the Bucks, beat them 4 out of 5 times. I don't feel great about beating them 4 more times. So I'm kind of leaning. Give me Orlando.
Yeah, and I will say this: I'm not sure how many games Bally Sports gets during the playoffs, but I guarantee they'll have almost every game if it's Pacers Magic, in terms of where that's going to
Yeah,
be shown, because you might have
yeah,
to find it on Spike TV or something like that.
exactly. Yep, yep.
You
Not
know,
gonna be featured.
NBA TV is like, we got the Pacers Magic game on. Nah, let's show a replay of the 1985 All-Star
Yep.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put a Pacers Magic, somewhere in the hidden weeds of cable network. But I do think that would be the most favorable matchup for Indiana. If you're looking at where you want the Cavs maybe to win, is I just don't want to play New York in the first round. I think New
Neither do I.
York is much more of a I'm trying to say this the right way. They're much more of a problem, I think, for Indiana with how they can defend. I think that with Cleveland, they've been so injury prone. I understand that New York's battle with injuries too, because OG's got the elbow issue. Randall's still coming back from the shoulder. Mitch Robb's on his way back. But like, if they can get fully healthy, like they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and make it a competitive series for Boston. For Cleveland, they've just had too many injuries. This is another injury for Donovan Mitchell with a sprained ankle. Mobley's not been as healthy this year. They've never really, like you said, found their stride, and there's not much time to find your stride left, Foch. There's only 11 games. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to me. But yeah, I agree. I do think that Orlando is the preferred matchup here. But there's one thing that we did talk about a few weeks ago that I just kind of want to bring up, and that is the starting five of the Pacers constantly changing. We've seen that starting five be locked in and solidified, and I think that those five are really starting to find their stride right now. Even though they've had some bad losses here and there, they're still getting off, maybe not to the hottest starts, but I feel like that group together is continuing to grow.
No, I do believe that. And it's not just me trying to look on the bright side of, hey, we got back-to-back wins, but like you're starting to see, yeah, to your point, even in some of those losses that are really unfortunate, the Pacers have not played bad. We've noticed that defensively, they are very improved from what we saw. Like that loss to Cleveland, it's very unfortunate. The Pacers should have won that game, but like they only gave up 108 points. And then it's like Chicago, that's I mean, DeMar DeRozan just goes, Michael Jordan like at the end of the game, and that's unfortunate. But we've seen that even the game against Minnesota. I mean, it came down to Nesmith getting blocked at the end. It's like the Pacers have really been in all of these games with like a minute to go or even the final seconds. So I think that that's great to see. But this is the starting five. There is no debate about it of like, oh, should the Pacers bring in like a Jalen Smith or anything? No, absolutely not. This is the group that you want to go into the playoffs with no doubt. Everybody knows their role, and I think that they have played well to that role. I just love the fact that it's like right now, Haliburton is hopefully turning the corner. Aaron Nesmith isn't playing his best ball, but we don't need it right now. It's going to come. I feel like Siakam is playing his best ball. I feel like Andrew Nembhard is getting that confidence, and what he's doing defensively is just huge for this team. And I feel like Turner's also had some big performances, hit some big shots along the way. So I feel like, with about 11 games to go right now, this is kind of the type of basketball you want to be playing.
It's a great win for the Pacers against the Warriors, but they are playing really, a little bit more solid basketball. I wouldn't say it's great yet, but it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this road trip could be, pivotal for this team kind of hitting their stride in terms of just that bonding together, having to win some big games here, and just, getting away from home sometimes can be a good thing because it makes you like get your focus back. It makes you refocus on things because when you're at home, there's more distractions, things like that. I feel very confident about, road trips playing a huge part in team success and just how you perform on the road. Now, if you have a bad road trip, it can be a negative effect. But if you have a good road trip, I think it can be a positive effect. So for me, this is where I'm excited to kind of see what the Pacers do after getting the win against Detroit and Golden State. Can they take care of the Lakers? The Lakers have been a very hot and cold team. They have a lot of size. The Pacers now have more size with the team that they've assembled by getting Pascal Siakam. Will they have a bitter taste in their mouth from the in-season tournament? I think there's a lot of good things to look at here, Facci, just with the excitement. And I know everybody's probably paying attention to March Madness, which I don't blame you. It's a lot of fun. Everybody's brackets are busted, but it's great. It's great to see the Pacers playing significant basketball games in the month of March. And I'm hoping that they can build off of these two wins and take down the Lakers.
I really am. And if you look at it in a little bit of a larger sample size, the Pacers have now won 5 of their last 7, but dating back to their last 8 games overall, those 3 losses during that 8-game stretch is by a total of 10 points. It took overtime for one of those. So it's just like they have been in every game lately or been able to win each of those games. So I think that, they're playing the right basketball at the right time, but you also know there is still room for improvement. I think that this road trip is going to be a pretty pivotal one. If the Pacers can continue to handle business, I think that that's going to be great. I think that I like the fact that at minimum, you're going to play the Lakers and the Clippers back to back. I know the Pacers have really struggled on back to backs, but they're not actually traveling during that stretch. So I think that helps. But this is also a perfect time to be able to, fix some of those back to back situations, be able to just finish strong. I think this is actually, ironically, it's the last back-to-back of the season. So maybe you won't be able to fix it, but I think it would be great to finish on a high note. I think that would be great. And for this Lakers team, they're very, very up and down. So, this is not something that I'd be like, oh, we can't beat the Lakers. I feel good that we've played the Lakers, and we did not play our best game against the Lakers. If you go back to that in-season tournament championship, that was really where the Lakers kind of figured out a way to defend Tyrese Haliburton, and the rest of the league kind of caught on. So I do feel that Tyrese is going to be going into that game expecting defensive coverage far different than the last time we played the Lakers, where he probably wasn't, expecting the type of defensive scheme they had in place.
No, for sure. I mean, they did a really good job. We talked about that a lot. And it was just, they were overmatched with the size of the Lakers. And that is one thing that was problematic when you had Bruce Brown out there playing some 4 at times and just going really small, trying to beat everybody with your offense. But this Pacers defense, Facci, they have gotten significantly better. You mentioned the last 8 games, right, for the Pacers. Mm-hmm. They are 115.3 in offensive rating, which is the 11th in the NBA over those 8 games. But look at this. A defensive rating of 107.1, which would be the 4th best in the NBA over the last 8 games, and they are 7th in net rating. The teams above them are a little bit interesting, but Boston, obviously, Dallas has had some good moments here and there. They've had some big wins. You got the Denver Nuggets, Sacramento Kings, Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Houston Rockets have also been in there, and they've been playing better.
I thought you were going to say that. They've been on fire lately. So it's like that's the outlier in there. It's just they're just playing some really good basketball. But when you mention fourth and you're talking about defense, I don't care what the sample size is. It could be 2 games, and I would still, it almost shed a tear from my eyes because of where we've come from in the beginning of this season, where we went from it went from could be a top 20 defensive unit to could be a top 25 to could we just not be last? So to start to see these improvements is just incredible, especially as we're, wrapping up basically March.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the defense all year long, but people have been paying attention to the Pacers defense. I mean, it's been 4th since the All-Star break too, Facci. So
that's mind-blowing in the best possible way.
Yeah, it's pretty. Oh, hold on, let me see here. Make sure my stats are correct. That might be wrong, actually. Hold on, I had too many filters going
Even
on
if
here.
It's top 10. That's fantastic.
It is. Oh man, it's 12. Okay,
we can live with 12. I mean, top 15. If you told us, hey, that after the All-Star break, the Pacers are going to have a top 15 defense, that's everything that we would say. You know what? That is beyond good enough for us. We'll still be able to handle on the offensive side of things. So I think that when you're saying 12th, hey, that's still incredible.
It is. So it's a great thing to see, but overall, I am just incredibly happy with how the Pacers have been playing, and I hope they can build off this momentum. And so everybody, thanks so much for tuning in on a Saturday episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Facci will be out of town for the next few episodes. Got some business to take care of, but have no fear. We will have post-game recaps for you against the Lakers, against the Clippers, and then Caitlin Cooper is going to be joining on Tuesday as well. So we've got 3 more episodes coming at you. We are action-packed. We never let the show stop, but Facci, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find us at on social media.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod, STP. You can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldenNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPodSTP. You can find us on Facebook at Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok at Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast where you can find all of our video content. And yes, we've actually uploaded a few of the podcast episodes, not just the recap ones, for the YouTube page. So be sure to check that out. Like every video that you watch. It really does help the show. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as liking and subscribing to the podcast platform. Wherever you're at, please subscribe, hit that follow button, whatever it is, and give us a 5-star rating interview. It really does mean a lot. And it hurts me to say this, Facci, but I am an Indiana Hoosiers fan. But congratulations to the Purdue Boilermakers for avoiding a disastrous loss in the first round. Zach Edey, an incredible performance. First player in college basketball history since 1995 to have a 30-20 game. Just a dominant performance, and they get a chance to move on to the Sweet 16 on Sunday. And I'm trying to remember who they play. That's how bad it is. They play Utah State. Utah State is who they play. And that could be a tough game, but they're in Indianapolis. I think, Purdue fans were wild and loud in that arena. But if you're at the games, make sure you check outside at the Key Bank guest chef spot, Facci, because Mike McFarland, pitmaster of Smoke and Barrel Barbecue, a friend of mine, he is out there as the guest chef this week, serving loaded baked potatoes and tacos. So we're talking pulled pork and brisket, and I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. I know we always bring up food to close it out, but if you're in the building, be there. But he's going to be there for the Pacers-Lakers game too, so that's really cool to see. So make sure you guys check that out. But Facci, I'm sorry I kind of closed this out a little bit longer than usual, but if you're excited for the Pacers to be on a 2-game winning streak, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers!